It is Angelo Archambault coming at you from Fear the Beard football channel. I'm just going to be knocking out like a couple videos today. I made one earlier about the AFC North predictions and where that's going to go. And then I'm going to just kind of knock out all of the AFC today so I can just kind of release videos throughout the week, pertaining to where I believe the AFC is going to go as far as standings wise and who's going to win their division and all of that stuff. So now we're going to be covering the AFC South. This is going to be my second video on this segment. So let's just dive right into it. First of all, I'm going to go over the Indianapolis Colts. We know I have them going 10-6, kind of a throwback or a little kickback to the 5 teams that didn't make the playoffs last year that can this year. We kind of know that I have them winning their final 6 games of the season, but let's just kind of, go off of, let's just go over their schedule. So I have them beating the Jacksonville Jaguars. I have them losing to the Vikings, beating the Jets, losing to the Bears. I have them 2-2 through their first quarter of the season. Now we get into the second quarter. I have them losing to the Browns, beating Cincinnati and then Detroit, and then losing to Baltimore. That game against Baltimore is going to be a part of a 3-game losing streak where you kind of feel like the wheels fall off the wagon a bit, and where you would be like starting to kind of say like, oh, Angelo's wrong, they're going to miss the playoffs, whatever. And but no, I have them going 4-4 through the first half of the season, and again 2-2 through that part of the quarter of the season on their second quarter. Now we get into the third quarter of the season where, like I said, this is the first 2 games of the start of a 3-game losing streak they get on, which is to Tennessee and Green Bay. But then obviously at that point they're 4-6, and so I'm just going to kind of go on and cover that 6-game win streak that I have them going on. I have them beating the Titans, beating the Texans, beating the Raiders, beating the Titans again, beating the Steelers, and beating the Jaguars. So, there's obviously a few games in there in the season where, variables can change. They can win another game earlier in the season, and then they can lose a game later in the season. But I'm pretty firm on that 10-6 mark. Now, could they do worse? Yeah, and it all depends on if Philip Rivers doesn't transition well into a better offensive line, and he continues to regress and go on a downward trajectory. So that's a possibility. But the reason why I have them going on a 6-game win streak at the end is just because I feel like, first of all, Frank Reich's a good head coach. Second of all, I feel like at that point, Philip Rivers is going to be adjusted to his new offense, and it's just things are going to start clicking. If you remember a couple of years ago when they went 10-6 and made that big playoff push, they started out like 1-5. And they won 9 of their last 10. So, obviously stranger things have happened, and that was one of those things. I mean, we've seen the Kansas City Chiefs. They started out, it was basically the same thing. They started out 1-5 during the Alex Smith days, and we saw them rally off 10 straight wins to win the division and go 11-5. So, I've seen things that are, I guess you would say, more improbable, if that's the right way to put it. But, that's my prediction. They have a good offensive line. They have a 3-headed monster. I loved what they did in the draft, and they have a very well-rounded defense, more well-rounded than what the Chargers have. So I feel like that's going to help out Philip Rivers. Moving on to the Jacksonville Jaguars. I have them right now at 3-13, but they do have a team where they could potentially go as high as 8 wins. I know that's a big jump, 3-8, but they have a good defense. Maybe Gardner Minshew plays good in his second year as a starter. Leonard Fournette, maybe he continues to have a good season. I don't know. But if he gets injured, this is not going to be a fun team to watch. But even if he stays healthy, it's very probable that they could just be in a lot of negative game scripts and Gardner Minshew has to pass all the time. We have no idea how that's going to go out. But as it stands, I have them 3-13. So let's kind of go over their schedule. I have them losing their first 5 games to the Colts, the Titans, the Dolphins, the Bengals, and the Texans. Very rough schedule to begin the season. Obviously, Miami's probably the only outlier game. Even Houston, I guess, is the only outlier game, really. Any of those 2 games could go either way. I like, obviously, Miami. I think they're going to do a little bit better this season. I like what they have at the head coaching position. So, and I love Fitzmagic. So, I really like him a lot. But I have them beating Detroit to get their first win of the season, following a loss to the Chargers, and then a win against the Texans. So this little 3-game stretch is actually going to be, in my opinion, their best part of the season. So if you're a Jaguars fan, tune in to that little 3-game stretch, because you're going to see the best part of their season ever. But then the wheels, if they haven't already fallen off the wagon, this is where they really start to fall off the wagon. They lose to the Packers, the Steelers, the Browns, the Vikings. So that's like a 4-game losing streak right there. I have them getting a win against the Titans, but then I have them losing to the Ravens, the Bears, and the Colts. So, yeah, I had them going 2-6 in the first half of the season. I have them completely just crap in the bed on the second half of the season, going 1-7. Now, like I said, there is some outlier games throughout their season. There's variables that can change, injuries. This is my predictions, where if everything goes right, which obviously not everything goes right, people get injured. But as everything stands right now, that's where I have it. Yeah, there's just not much to really say. I don't think I have to defend them too much. I don't like Doug Marrone as a coach, as a head coach. I think he's more suited to be a coordinator, something like that. And, that's just my opinion. Let's move on to the Houston Texans. I have regression coming for them. And the biggest reason being is because over the last 2 off seasons, I've questioned every single thing that they've done. It seemed like that they were holding out their GM spot for somebody else to come along, and they just gave it to Bill O'Brien, who, doing the head coach GM deal, kind of like Bill Belichick. I don't know if he's not done a whole lot to earn it. Now, granted, the Bill O'Brien days have been the best days in Houston, but I think if he doesn't get it right, I feel like if he doesn't get it right this year, then they're just going to let him go. But I don't know. I could be wrong. I really could be. Maybe they just really love Billy B over there. I guess. I don't know. But let's just move into their schedule. I have them losing their first 4 games to the Chiefs, the Ravens, the Steelers, and then the Vikings. Getting their first win against the Jaguars, and then losing to the Titans, the Packers, the Jaguars, and the Browns. So for the first 9 games, I have them going 1-8. Obviously, it gets better for the last 7, and a lot of it's because their schedule gets a bit easier. And I kind of felt bad really putting them at this 1-8 mark, realistically. Now, this goes back to what I said with all my teams. Variables can change. There's outlier games in there. Maybe they win a couple games earlier in the season and lose some later in the season. But I really have them going no higher than 8-8, just because, I think that their tackles are pretty good as far as Laramie Tunsil and Titus Howard. He was a better rookie than I anticipated. But, you lose DeAndre Hopkins. Granted, you get Brandon Cooks, but you regress on that. And David Johnson, he's 28 at this point of his career. He already played behind a bad offensive line in Arizona. Now, this is a little bit of a step up, but not by much. So, if he couldn't really get it right in Arizona, I don't see him getting it right later in his career. Like, he had 1 good season. I don't see it happening in Houston. And I don't think that it's going to be a 2-headed monster with Duke Johnson and David Johnson either. So there's not much to go off of. They don't have any weapons outside of Brandon Cooks. All they really have is, Deshaun Watson. I feel bad for the guy because he's a great quarterback, but he's just I don't want to really crap on too many teams, but he's not in a good organization. Honestly, they really need to do more for him. But yeah, going into the final 7 games, I have them beating the Patriots and the Lions, losing to the Colts, beating the Bears, losing to the Colts again, and then beating Cincinnati and Tennessee. There's not much more I can say about the Texans that hasn't already been said by me and everybody else. They need to make some smarter decisions. Now, I'm just a guy from North Carolina. What I'm saying realistically holds absolutely no merit. And, probably if some head coach or person in the Texans organization happens to see what I'm saying, is going to be like, who the F is this guy? But there's nothing you can really argue with what I'm saying here. And, if there's a Houston Texans fan out here watching this, I just want to say, man, I don't want to crap on your team. I'm just giving my honest opinion. I'm not going to sit there and crap on your team. This is just my honest opinion because I don't believe it's right to sit there and crap on somebody's team. But when the facts are put in front of you, I'm not saying anything that's not true. Now, rounding out the division is the Tennessee Titans. I have them doing exactly what they did last year. And a lot of it's because now if they were able to re-sign Jack Conklin, I probably would have them doing a lot better as far as maybe going 11-5. But I have them going 9-7 this year. And they just have a very well-rounded team. I have to honestly see how well Ryan Tannehill does in year 2 of this offense. Did he do enough to merit a $30 million a year contract? I don't think so. That's nothing to take away from him because he's been a decent quarterback. Realistically, he's been the best quarterback for the Dolphins post Dan Marino. So, for what that's worth right there. But, I got to see more from him. I got to see how Derrick Henry does running without Jack Conklin making those big holes for him. And I got to see if this defense can continue to put up and not shut up. So I like Mike Vrabel as a head coach. I think that he's probably going to be the best coach from the Bill Belichick tree. So that's just my opinion. But let me dive into their schedule. I have them losing to the Broncos. I have them beating the Jaguars, losing to the Vikings. And then going on a bit of a win streak here, I have them winning against the Steelers, the Bills, the Texans, the Bengals, the Bears, and then the Colts. So I have them winning 6 straight games. So that puts them at like 7-2. But their schedule gets really tough for the final 7 games of the season. So they have a bit of an easier schedule. I think that the outlier games in there is really maybe Buffalo, where they could lose in that, and even Chicago. There's a lot of different variables in there, but that's just my opinion looking at the schedule. It gets tougher. I have them losing to the Ravens, and then I have them losing to the Indianapolis Colts, who are at this point in time going on that playoff push that I alluded to earlier. I do have them beating the Browns, which gives them their 8th win on the season and kind of keeps them in contention. But then I have them losing to the Jaguars because I feel like this is a game where they're going to kind of come in real confident and being like, okay, we've stumbled a tiny bit, but we're going to be able to rebound against the Jaguars. And I don't think they're going to take them too seriously. And that's where I think that the Jaguars are just going to be in that mode like, you know what, we have nothing to lose. Let's just try to be a playoff killer to our division rival. So that's kind of my thought process as to why. I had to kind of wait until we got to the Titans to really explain to you why I feel like they would lose that game, because that happens a lot, actually. It really does. Like, just go back and look at a lot of seasons. There's a lot of teams that are just completely out of it that are like, you know what, let's just screw up one of our division rivals who are in contention for the playoffs. So, but yeah, I have them losing that game, and that would put them at that point at 8-5. I have them beating Detroit because, they're not going to have that happen 2 weeks in a row. They're going to be like, we can't do this 2 games in a row and not take a team seriously. And then now they're kind of in crisis mode because the Colts are pushing for the playoffs and are just, at that point, I think I would have the Colts at 7-6. So being 8-5 is, kind of where you're like, we really need to tighten things up. But then they play Green Bay and Houston, and I feel like they'll lose those games. I think Green Bay is going to be obviously one of the best teams. I think I have them tied with the Ravens for the best record in the NFL as it stands right now. And then Houston, I just feel like it's going to be the same situation. I feel like they're going to be like, there's nothing left to prove. DeAndre Watson, just kind of fused DeAndre Hopkins and Deshaun Watson together. But Deshaun Watson at that point, I think he's just going to be like, you know what, let me just kind of go out and just show out a little bit. And I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that they're not going to have Jack Conklin. Obviously, there's some games I think they would win if they had him. But, maybe they find a way to replace him. Maybe they do better because they obviously can. They have a good head coach. They have a solid defense. Ryan Tannehill obviously went 6-1 with them as a starter last year, and they have Derrick Henry. So, they got the Hulk in the backfield. It could happen, but right now I just have them going 9-7. That seems to be where they usually finish out, and I don't feel like much changes. But, maybe they do better in free agency next year. Maybe they do better in the draft next year. Not to say that they didn't do good in the draft. I don't think they did enough to really improve from where they were, and they lost a really good offensive lineman. So, but that's going to wrap up this video. If you like this, if you haven't already liked it, please do that. And if you haven't already and you like what I'm putting out, just hit that subscribe button and turn the bell notification on. This is going to just help my channel grow so I can put out better content for you guys. I really enjoy making these for you. I say that every single video because I want to let you guys know that I truly, thoroughly enjoy making these videos for y'all. And I hope you enjoy them as much as I enjoy making them. So you guys have a wonderful day. I hope you enjoy your weekend. I hope you all have a wonderful week. And I will be talking to you guys again very soon.